something specific happened in 1921. Before that, bread had been the same for thousands of years. And after that, everything changed. And I'm going to show you exactly what was lost and, more importantly, how to get it back. Most of us grew up believing that bread is supposed to be pillowy, soft, perfectly white, and capable of sitting on a supermarket shelf for 3 weeks without ever growing a single speck of mold. But when we eat it, we often feel really heavy, bloated, tired, or hungry, again just an hour later. When we've been conditioned by the modern food industry to blame our own bodies, to believe that our digestive systems are fundamentally broken, but what if the problem isn't in your gut? What if the problem is that modern industrial bread isn't actually bread anymore? Before 1921, bread had been made exactly the same way for thousands of years. It was the absolute foundation of our daily survival across almost every culture on earth. Then, within just a single generation, everything changed. Medieval peasants ate up to 2 pounds of bread every single day. And in many cultures, grains made up about 80% of their diet. Growing up in Germany, we had bread for almost every meal. It was dark, dense, filling, and nourishing. The standard American bread is something completely different. Today, I want to show you the exact moment our bread was broken, what was stripped away for the sake of modern convenience, and the simple, old world method you can use to reclaim real food in your own kitchen. Stick around until the end because the fix is much simpler than you think. To understand what happened, we have to look at 2 massive back-to-back shifts that completely altered the biology of grain in every short window of time. For millennia, flour was stone ground. This was a slow, cool process that kept the entire grain kernel completely intact. That meant the bran and the germ, the exact places where the fiber, minerals, and healthy fats live, remained in your food. And the production of bread was a central task of most American families up until the late 1800s. But then, industrial steel roller mills took over. They were faster, cheaper, and perfectly separated the bran and the germ away from the starch. Why did they do this? Because without the natural oils of the germ, flour becomes shelf stable. It can sit in paper bags in dark warehouses for months without spoiling. What was left behind was essentially pure, refined starch. And there was a second shift, the introduction of commercial isolated yeast in the late 1800s. Before this, bakeries and homemakers relied entirely on wild fermentation. It was a process that took hours, often overnight, to let the dough rise. Commercial yeast cut that time down from 12 hours to less than 60 minutes. Factories could suddenly churn out millions of uniform loaves every day. But that fast rise meant the dough skipped a vital biological step. To get the public to buy this new ultra-fast factory product over their local neighborhood baker, industrial conglomerates launched an incredibly clever marketing campaign. They built pristine, bright white factories and proudly advertised that their bread was never touched by human hands. They put out ads claiming that traditional hand-kneaded bread, usually made by local immigrant families in neighborhood shops, was unsanitary and unclean. They weaponized the idea of cleanliness to condition an entire generation to prefer a sterile, manufactured product over real, traditional food. But here's where the factories didn't tell people. That slow part of the traditional bread making wasn't an inconvenience. It was the entire point. When our grandmothers or old European bakers mixed flour, water, and salt with a wild starter culture and let it ferment slowly overnight, they weren't just waiting for bubbles. They were letting a complex community of wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria do critical biological work. Grains naturally contain something called phytic acid. It's a so-called anti-nutrient that binds to essential minerals like iron, zinc, and magnesium in your digestive tract, preventing your body from absorbing them. But during a long, slow sourdough fermentation, the acidity activates enzymes that naturally neutralize phytic acid, unlocking those nutrients. And even more importantly, those organic acids spend hours gently breaking down and pre-digesting the complex gluten proteins in the flour. It doesn't eliminate gluten entirely, but it breaks it down into a much simpler, weaker form. When you skip fermentation to rush a loaf to a supermarket shelf in under 3 hours, raw, undegraded proteins hit your digestive system at full strength. This is exactly why so many people who notice they feel bloated or heavy after eating a fast-baked commercial loaf discover they can actually eat traditionally long fermented sourdough slice with absolutely no discomfort. Your body recognizes it as a real food. Because modern commercial bread completely skips the natural transformation of time, factories have to use chemistry to fake the results. Let's look at a typical ingredient list from a standard store-bought loaf. Real bread requires exactly 3 ingredients: flour, water, and salt, and maybe a bit of a white leaven, and that's it. But on this modern label, you'll see 20, 30, or 40 separate items. Let's look at what these are actually doing. Preservatives like calcium propionate, I hope I can even pronounce those right. These are added because the bread lacks the natural protective acidity that a slow fermentation creates to prevent mold. Dough conditioners and datum, these are chemicals used to force the dough to stretch and hold gas unnaturally fast in an assembly line. Mono and diglycerides, emulsifiers added purely to mimic the soft texture that slow gluten development is supposed to provide naturally. And the most incredible part, you'll often see these exact chemical lists on loaves explicitly labeled as artisan sourdough in the supermarket aisle. They use a tiny splash of dried sourdough powder for flavoring, but still use commercial yeast and chemicals to rasterize. It uses the same word on the front of the packaging, but is a completely different food on the inside. And the industrial shortcut eventually caused a national health crisis that almost no one talks about today. By the late 1930s, because Americans had completely shifted to eating this dead, nutritionally incomplete white flour, widespread vitamin deficiencies began breaking out across the country. Diseases like pellagra and beriberi were appearing in otherwise healthy young people. And as the specter of World War II loomed, military officials grew deeply panicked. When young men showed up to enlist, a staggering percentage of them were rejected because they were too malnourished and physically weak to fight or work in a wartime manufacturing. In 1940, the government launched congressional flour hearings. Scientists pointed out that the purification and bleaching of white flour had stripped the population of its baseline health. But instead of returning to slow, stone-ground, whole grain methods, which would slow down the massive factory assembly lines, the government and the food industry came up with an ironic compromise: enrichment. They decided to let factories keep bleaching and stripping the grain, but force them to spray a handful of synthetic, lab-made B vitamins and iron back onto the dead starch before packaging it. Brands like Wonder Bread immediately turned this into a marketing masterpiece. They launched massive campaigns claiming their bread was a scientific miracle that builds bodies in 12 ways. They took credit for solving a health crisis that their own industrial processing had caused in the first place. And to make matters even more complicated, the wheat itself changed. In the mid-20th century, modern wheat was hybridized and bred intensely for maximum yield per acre and high gluten strength, so it could withstand the brutal mechanical pulling of factory machines. It was optimized beautiful for industrial output, not for human compatibility. And that is why heritage, ancient grains like einkorn, emmer, rye, or spelt felt so different. They maintain a simpler genetic structure and a much weaker gluten profile that our bodies recognize, digest, and process exactly the way nature intended. When you look at this entire history, it can feel incredibly overwhelming. But the goal isn't to look back with anger or to feel like you have to completely overhaul your entire life tomorrow. Reclaiming your table happens in simple, manageable steps. I like to break it down into 3 levels, and you can simply pick the one that fits your life right now. Level 1 is simple. Read the back label. When you're at the store, ignore the marketing on the front. Flip the loaf over. If you're looking for real sourdough, look for an ingredient list that says flour, water, salt, and starter culture. If it looks like a chemistry experiment, leave it on the shelf. Level 2 is to source locally. seek out an independent, small-scale baker in your town or your local farmer's market. Ask them directly about the process. Do you use long natural fermentation? Supporting someone who keeps the old traditions alive is a beautiful way to bring real food back to your table. And level 3 is to experience the joy of making it yourself. You don't need a digital scale, a lab coat, or complicated hydration formulas to bake incredible bread. Our great-grandmothers certainly didn't have any of those things. They just used their eyes, their hands, and a simple rhythm. So if you want to learn how to do this without the stress, I have put together a completely free resource for you. It's my Heritage Sourdough Quick Start Cheat Sheet, and it walks you through my no-feed, no-discard method. It completely busts the online myth and shows you exactly how to build a thriving starter from scratch in just a few days without wasting any flour or treating it like a demanding pet. You can download it instantly using the first link in the description down below. And if you want to skip the trial and error entirely, I also have my full book, Sourdough Simplified, alongside my step-by-step online sourdough course and my wonderful membership community, the Heritage Kitchen Table, where we walk alongside you every single week. I have watched complete beginners who were absolutely terrified of yeast or had failed 3 times before suddenly pull the most magnificent, crusty, nourishing loaves out of their ovens. If they can do it, I promise you can too. Our grandmothers didn't need complicated methods or factory certifications. They possessed a deep respect for time, patience, and real ingredients. We can bring that exact same grounding, comforting feeling back into our modern homes, and it just starts with one loaf. Everything we talked about today, including a free quick start cheat sheet, is linked right down in the description below. Now, my question to you, what did bread look like on your kitchen table growing up? And have you noticed a difference in how modern food makes you feel? Let me know in the comments below. I read and to reply to as many as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.